Welcome to my channel. If you enjoy immersive stories and captivating worlds, don't forget to subscribe, like, and share this video to support the channel. Now, sit back, relax, and let your imagination take flight. Wishing you peace, wonder, and a truly unforgettable listening experience. The Silence of Chronos. The stars stretched endlessly across the black, silent expanse as the USS Horizon drifted past the far edge of known space. There were no planets here, no gravitational bodies, no signs of cosmic life, only a void so deep it seemed to swallow starlight. The crew was on edge, though no one dared to say it aloud. They had followed a faint, unexplained signal into this darkness, and now even that signal had disappeared. Captain Alara Monroe stood on the bridge, her arms folded behind her back, eyes locked on the forward display. The stars had grown sparse. Too sparse. She tapped the side of the console instinctively, as if that would conjure clarity from an increasingly meaningless readout. Still nothing? She asked. Not turning. No, ma'am, said Lieutenant Vega from the navigation terminal. We've lost the last of our stellar bearings. The computer can't triangulate our position. That's impossible, muttered Dr. Kian Rao, approaching from the science station. His tablet was blinking with static where data should be. We're not that far from the Sagittarius Rim. There should be plenty of navigational data, unless what? Alara asked. Unless we're no longer within the observable structure of spacetime as we understand it. A sharp silence fell over the bridge. Even the hum of the engines felt quieter, as if reluctant to disturb what was beginning to form between them. Dread. Commander Hakim, standing beside the tactical panel, scoffed lightly. With all due respect, Doctor, that sounds like theoretical nonsense. Rao didn't flinch. It is theoretical, but so was faster than light travel until we did it. Alara turned, slowly this time. Her eyes found Rao's and held them. Explain it to me. Rao hesitated. He wasn't used to translating concepts like this. We may have crossed into a region where the normal flow of time, its linearity, its causality, has broken down. Like entering a vacuum not just of matter, but of time itself. You're saying time doesn't exist here? Hakim asked. No, I'm saying our version of time may not. We might be in a pocket universe. Or a collapsed temporal field. Something that doesn't obey the rules we live by. Our instruments are failing because they're based on assumptions that no longer apply. Alara looked at Vega. How long have we been inside this region? Vega opened her mouth, closed it again. She checked her wrist display. Then her terminal. She frowned. I don't know. Captain, the clocks are stuck. Every system clock reads a different time. Some haven't moved in. I don't know how long. I can't tell if it's been minutes or hours. Could be seconds, Hakim said quietly. Or days, Rao added. Alara straightened. Full ship scan. I want to know if anything is affecting life support, crew vitals, or external hull integrity. Vega nodded and turned back to her console. But something strange flickered in her peripheral vision, a smear of light. Like a reflection with no source. She turned quickly, but there was nothing there. Just the console, blinking in quiet defiance of her certainty. We've picked up a localized fluctuation in the aft cargo bay, she said. Temperature anomaly. Nothing critical, but it wasn't there before. Rao, with me, Alara ordered. Vega, keep scanning. Commander, maintain alert status. They moved quickly through the ship's sterile corridors. The echo of their boots absorbed by the sound-dampening materials. Alara's mind raced. She had led missions through asteroid storms, collapsed moons, even a wormhole near Proxima b, but this felt different. This wasn't just unknown. This was unknowable. The cargo bay was dim, the lights flickering faintly like candlelight trapped behind frost. Rao hesitated at the threshold. Alara stepped in, her hand on the holstered sidearm she rarely used. At the center of the bay was the anomaly, a shimmering sphere of air. Maybe 2 meters wide, vibrating faintly like the surface of disturbed water. Nothing touched it. No breeze, no sound, yet it pulsed. Rao approached, his scanner trembling in his hand. It's not emitting radiation. It's not cold or hot. It's null. What do you mean? I mean it isn't doing anything. Not reflecting light, not refracting. It's just there, an absence pretending to be presence. Alara's eyes narrowed. She suddenly felt the edges of her own thoughts slipping, as if the longer she looked, the less real she was becoming. She tore her gaze away. We need to leave this bay. Now. They backed away. But Rao didn't take his eyes off the sphere. Even when the door closed behind them, he could still see it in his mind. Back on the bridge, Vega's voice came through comms. Captain, we just lost the ship's timekeeping system entirely. Every internal clock has reset to 0. Alara blinked. 0? As in, there's no current time anymore. Captain, according to the ship, nothing has ever happened. Rao spoke slowly, as if waking from a dream. Then maybe it hasn't. Alara felt a coldness settle in her chest, the kind that couldn't be measured by sensors. She looked again at the forward display. The stars had vanished. There was only darkness now, and no time left to remember them. A quiet panic spread through the ship like smoke in a sealed chamber, silent, unseen, but suffocating. No alarms sounded. No systems failed completely. Yet the absence of time itself was unraveling something far more essential than machinery: the minds of those who depended on it. On the bridge, Lieutenant Maris Vega sat frozen in front of her console, staring at the screen. The stars were still gone. No sensor data, no telemetry. The ship reported it was in motion. Yet velocity meant nothing without a point of reference. They could be drifting, accelerating, or completely still. She blinked and suddenly found herself holding a mug of coffee she didn't remember making. It was warm, half full. She checked her logs. There was no entry for any break. No system record of her leaving her post. Her hands trembled slightly. Bridge to Captain Monroe, she said. I think I just skipped something. In the hallway outside the cargo bay, Alara turned from the wall-mounted comm panel. Say again? I don't know how to explain it. Vega said. I was watching the scanner. Then I blinked, and something had changed. Something happened between, but I can't find it. There's no data. It's like the ship forgot. Alara's jaw tightened. Keep trying to log everything. Every second, if you have to. That's just it, Captain, Vega said softly. There aren't any seconds. The line went silent. Below deck, deep in the maintenance corridor near the reactor coil, Chief Engineer Tomas Reddick checked the magnetic containment fields again. Everything looked nominal, but something felt wrong, like static in the air. The coils weren't humming right. It was almost like they were breathing, slow, deliberate pulses that mimicked a heartbeat. He removed a panel to inspect the coils manually. As his hand reached in, he caught a glimpse of movement in the polished metal, a figure behind him. He turned sharply. No one, but he had seen it. Not just a shadow, a face, his own. He dropped the panel and stepped back. Sweat broke out across his forehead. Engineering to medical, he said into the comm. I think I'm hallucinating. Dr. Rao was already in the medbay, running diagnostics on himself. His own vitals had been logged as stable, identical, for the past who knew how long. His pulse, blood pressure, even neural patterns hadn't changed. As if his body wasn't reacting to anything anymore. No hunger, no fatigue, no aging. It should have been impossible. He tried to access old logs. They were there, but inconsistent. Some showed duplicate entries, others were blank, or appeared out of order. One entry from his personal log showed him describing an event he had no memory of. His own voice, calmly recounting a systems failure in the hydroponics bay. Except that failure had never happened. Or hadn't happened yet. Rao stood in front of the medbay mirror and stared into his own eyes. Something stared back. Himself, but not quite. His reflection held eye contact too long. It didn't blink when he did. He backed away, eyes wide. On the bridge, Alara returned to her chair with long, slow steps. Her fingers brushed the armrest, feeling for something, anything, that grounded her. But the chair was cold, unfamiliar. I've been here before, she whispered. Captain? Vega asked. Alara shook her head. No, never mind. The comms crackled. Bridge, this is Hakim. We've got movement outside the ship. Alara straightened. Repeat that? Something's out there, off port side. You're going to want to see this. She crossed to the display, motioned Vega to transfer the feed. The screen flickered, then showed a blurred mass of shifting shapes. They moved without propulsion, gliding smoothly against the black. It wasn't debris. It wasn't mechanical. And then, impossibly, it focused. A second horizon. The image was distorted, like a dream refracted through a broken lens. But the contours were there, the same hull, the same registry code. It floated just outside visual range, motionless, with no signs of life. Rao arrived on the bridge at that moment, panting. "It's us," he said without needing to ask. "It's the horizon." "You're saying we're seeing a reflection?" Hakim asked over the comm. "No," Rao said. "I think we're seeing a memory. This void, it's not just without time. It's outside time. Everything that's ever entered it might still be here. Not decayed, not dead, just held." "You're suggesting that's another version of us?" Alara asked. "Another crew? Maybe it's us from a different loop," Rao said. "Or maybe we're the loop. Maybe we've been here before. Over and over. Maybe we never left." A quiet chill wrapped around them. Vega looked back at her screen. The other horizon, it's fading. They watched as the image blinked, shimmered, and dissolved into static. Then, nothing. No signal. No trace. As if it had never been there. Rao turned to Alara, eyes serious. "We need to leave," he said. "We need to find a way out before we forget who we are." Alara nodded slowly, assuming there is a way out. Vega swallowed hard. "Captain, if this place really has no time, how will we even know when we found it?" No one answered. Outside, the stars did not return. The air aboard the horizon felt thick, like breathing through fabric soaked in cold water. Though life support reported optimal conditions, the crew moved slower, spoke less, and paused between actions as if questioning the meaning of motion itself. Time had not stopped, it had unraveled. There was no rhythm left. Only awareness unmoored. Captain Alara Monroe stood alone in her quarters, staring at the wall. Not a view screen, not a map, just blank plating. She had no idea how long she had been there. Minutes? Hours? She had closed her eyes to rest and opened them to silence. She checked the ship log. It was blank. She checked her personal log. Also blank. Her comm badge chimed, but no voice followed, just static. Then silence again. She pressed it. Nothing. When she finally stepped out into the hallway, her boots echoed in a way they hadn't before, as if the sound was reaching ears that weren't hers. She passed crew members she couldn't name, though their faces looked familiar. A young ensign nodded at her. No. Not nodded. Repeated a motion she was only just beginning to remember seeing before. The horizon was no longer a ship. It was a loop, a mirror, a fragment caught in recursion. She made her way to the central observation dome. The stars were still gone. In their place was something new. Lines. Not of light, but of memory, streamers of phantom images flickering just beyond perception. Not visions, not hallucinations, more like echoes of things that hadn't happened yet. She saw a corridor she'd never walked through. A conversation she hadn't had, with a dead man. Rao's voice cut through the fog in her head. "Captain, come to the medbay. We've got a problem." She turned and found him already standing behind her, eyes wide with a tremor of something nearing fear. He looked pale. Older somehow, like he hadn't slept in days, though in this place, sleep itself may have been meaningless. They moved quickly through the corridor. Or slowly. It didn't matter anymore. Inside the medbay, a crew member lay on the diagnostic table. Ensign Juno. Communications. Her body was still, her eyes open, but her pupils dilated unnaturally. And her skin had taken on a translucent quality. She collapsed during a routine systems check. Rao said, "No trauma, no neural spikes. She just stopped." "Is she dead?" Alara asked. "That's the problem," Rao said. "I don't think she's dead. But I don't think she's alive either. Her brain is still emitting low-level activity, like the residue of consciousness. A signal with no origin." Alara leaned closer. Juno's lips moved slightly, twitching as if trying to form a word. "Wait," she said. "She's whispering." They listened. Juno's lips formed the same sound. Again and again, almost imperceptibly. Again. Rao stepped back. "She's remembering something that hasn't happened yet. She's looping," Alara murmured. "She's stuck in a fragment of time, repeating it like a groove in a broken record." Rao nodded. "I've seen signs of it in others. In myself. Moments we seem to repeat. Thoughts that return, unprompted. And if she's further along." He didn't finish. They watched as Juno's body faded, not disintegrated, but simply lost contrast with reality. Like a pencil sketch slowly being erased. When Alara looked up from the table, Rao was gone. No sound, no footstep, no movement. She was alone in the medbay. The lights dimmed. She reached for her comm. "Bridge. Report. Commander Hakim." Respond. No answer. The hum of the ship had changed. It now carried a subtle rhythmic pulse, like breathing. Or thinking. Alara moved through the corridors with increased urgency. Every hallway felt slightly too long. Every turn slightly too sharp. Sometimes she passed doorways that hadn't been there before. Sometimes she was certain she had passed them already. She reached the bridge. It was empty. The main console displayed nothing but a flat, uniform glow. No data. No control. A soft voice spoke behind her. You're almost at the edge. She turned. Rao was back. But change. His uniform torn. Eyes unfocused. A thin trail of blood ran from his nose. He stared at her like he didn't know her name. You left, she said. No, he said quietly. I just arrived. He held out a data slate. I left this for you. I think I wrote it yesterday. Or tomorrow. Doesn't matter. Just read it. She took it and scanned the opening lines. They were in her own handwriting. To myself. Or whoever I become. If you're reading this, you're still intact. You still have identity. That won't last. Time isn't broken here, it feeds. It strips sequence from memory. Causality collapses. Eventually, you won't remember why you started anything. You'll just exist. Fragments. There is a way out. I think. Alara looked up sharply. This. How did I write this? I think it's a memory you haven't had yet. Rao said. But you will. Or maybe already did. The ship shuddered. Not from external force, but from within. A ripple passed through the hull. As if something in the horizon itself was waking up. Rao staggered. She's becoming aware. He whispered. Alara frowned. Who? The ship, Rao said, his voice trembling. Or what's replacing her? This void, it doesn't just erase. It rewrites. If we stay here, we won't just forget who we are. We'll become something else. The lights flickered. On the viewscreen, a shape emerged, larger than any vessel. A vast spiral of memory. Like a constellation of every moment they had ever lived. Stretched across the void. At its center was a doorway. An event horizon of pure silence. She's showing us the way. Rao whispered. Or she's testing us. Alara said. They stood on the bridge. The last crew of a ship drifting outside of time. With nothing but echoes of identity and a narrowing choice. Step into the unknown. Or dissolve into forgetfulness. Behind them, somewhere deep within the horizon, a voice whispered. Again, the door at the center of the void did not resemble anything constructed by human hands. It wasn't made of metal, or stone, or even energy as they understood it. It was absence, shaped, a perfect silhouette in space that swallowed light, thought, and memory alike. It called to them, not with sound, but with recognition. Captain Alara Monroe stood on the bridge of the horizon, gazing at it from the screen. The void had begun to pulse. Not visually, but perceptually. Each cycle stole something small. A sensation, a name, a memory of a face she knew she should love. It came back sometimes, but never quite the same. Behind her, Lieutenant Maris Vega slumped against the console. Her voice thin. Captain, I don't know if I still have parents. Alara turned. Vega's eyes were wet with confusion. Not grief. I know I used to. Vega whispered. But I can't feel it anymore. The connection is gone. I remember the story, but it's like it happened to someone else. Alara stepped closer, placed a hand on her shoulder. We're still real, she said firmly, though even she wasn't sure anymore. We still choose. That's how we survive this. Vega nodded slowly, like a child being promised a lie for her own good. Below decks, Tomas Reddick, the engineer, moved through the maintenance corridor with a loaded plasma cutter. His footsteps echoed twice with every step. Once in sound, once in anticipation. He kept seeing glimpses of himself. Not reflections, versions. Sometimes older, sometimes younger, sometimes bleeding. The last version stood at the end of the hall, watching him. He raised the cutter. You're not me. The figure smiled. Not yet. Reddick didn't fire. The figure turned and walked through a bulkhead, vanishing like smoke in water. He lowered the tool. Fingers trembling. The walls pulsed once, subtly. A heartbeat of the ship, or the thing the ship was becoming. In the medbay, Dr. Rao had begun recording messages to himself. Log 37. I think. Time index unknown. Mental fragmentation accelerating. I forget why I started each log halfway through. The ship is changing, adapting to the environment. Or mimicking it. Deck layout is inconsistent. Bio readings fluctuate. There's no circadian rhythm left. We sleep without rest. He looked up at the camera. I think the door in the void is more than an exit. I think it's a threshold. A filter. Something beyond that point either reassembles you or erases you. The ship wants us to go there. Or the void does. Maybe they're the same thing now. He reached for the sedative hypospray beside him, paused, and whispered to no one, "Don't forget who you are." Back on the bridge, Alara reviewed the data slate again, the one supposedly written by her future self. More lines had appeared since she last read it. To myself again. The door isn't real in the way we understand. It's an event boundary, a temporal crucible. You won't pass through it, you'll unfold through it. Everything held together by time, memory, identity, even matter, gets questioned. Choose carefully what you carry with you. Her hands clenched the tablet. What does it mean? Choose carefully. Rao's voice answered from the doorway behind her. I think it means only part of us gets through. He stepped onto the bridge. His uniform now patched with someone else's name, Reddick. Alara blinked. Where did you get that? I don't remember. He looked down at it with distant curiosity. Then back up. But I know what the door is now. She watched him carefully. Go on. It's not just a passage. It's a choice. An interface between structure and unstructure. If we enter it with fear, we dissolve. If we enter it with intent, maybe we transform. Transform into what? Vega asked quietly. Rao smiled. And for the first time in days, weeks, or however long they'd been here, it wasn't a tired smile. It was one of purpose. Something that remembers. The senior crew gathered in the observation dome. Beyond the glass, the doorway pulsed with more definition now, an invitation with teeth. I think we all understand, Alara said, addressing the few who remained. This place erases time. It steals cause and effect. We've lost people, and we're losing pieces of ourselves. But we've been given a path. One more step. Through the threshold. Reddick, now speaking in short bursts between long silences, said, the ship is folding. Preparing to enter. Dr. Rao nodded. We let the horizon carry us. But when we go through as us. Not as shadows. Not as noise. Alara turned to the helm. Vega, take us in. The young lieutenant nodded and placed her hands on the controls. The ship responded, not with thrusters, but by aligning, as if it had always been drifting toward this moment. Outside, the blackness bent. The doorway expanded, no longer a hole, but a horizon line stretching across everything. Geometry failed. Physics bent. Every part of the ship began to hum in resonance with the anomaly. And then, a flash, not of light, of memory. Alara was on Earth, in a field, holding someone's hand, a laugh in her throat. Vega was at a piano. A child's voice calling her name. Reddick, in a bar, toasting to a future that never came. Rao, standing alone at the foot of a hospital bed. The ship passed through. Silence fell. And then, a voice, clear, echoing. Reconstruction initiated. Alara opened her eyes. She was standing. The horizon was gone. Beneath her feet, stone. Around her, light. And before her, rising from the mist of a world she didn't recognize. A tower made of moments. She turned, and so did the others. They remembered. For now, they stood together on a smooth, pale surface, under a sky that shimmered with layered hues of lavender and silver. No sun, no stars, just a dim, omnipresent light that seemed to come from within the air itself. Captain Alara Monroe stepped forward cautiously. The ground beneath her boots responded, subtly shifting as if sensing her intention rather than her weight. Around them stretched an endless horizon of featureless terrain interrupted only by a single, massive tower in the distance. It spiraled into the sky like a strand of DNA sculpted from glass and thought. The rest of the surviving crew emerged behind her. Dr. Rao, Lieutenant Vega, Engineer Reddick, just 4 out of 37. No sign of the horizon. No sign of the void. Only this place. Rao squinted at the tower. It's not made of matter as we know it. It's memory. Alara looked at him. Explain. I can't. Not with words that apply here. But I feel it. That structure isn't something built. It's something recalled. They began walking toward it. The closer they came, the stranger everything became. Not physically. Perceptually. Each step forward caused the world around them to ripple, not like water, but like thoughts changing form. Paths appeared beneath their feet that hadn't been there. Voices drifted through the stillness, whispers from old lives. Reddick stopped, hand trembling. I just heard my mother's voice. He muttered. She's been dead for 30 years. Alara paused beside him. Are you sure? He looked at her, eyes haunted. No. The approach to the tower was neither linear nor consistent. Sometimes they walked for minutes and the tower grew closer. Other times, they would blink and find themselves back where they started. Yet they were not repeating steps. Each moment remained different, even when the view looked the same. It wasn't until Vega collapsed to her knees that they realized what the place was doing to them. I just saw myself, she whispered. Not now, future me. Standing in that tower, looking back. Rao knelt beside her. Did she say anything? Vega nodded, shivering. She said, be careful what you choose to remember. When they reached the tower, its scale became overwhelming. It had no visible entrance, no seams or markings. It simply was a monolith of translucent layers, each one shifting with the colors of memory, reds and golds for joy, deep blue for loss, gray for things best forgotten. As they stood before it, Alara felt the question, not asked aloud, not in words, but it was there, pushing against her mind. What will you give to remain whole? She recoiled instinctively, but the others had already felt it too. Rao stepped forward first. This isn't a test we pass by strength or logic. This is internal. It wants us to choose who we are and what we leave behind. The surface of the tower responded to him, rippling like a pond struck by a pebble. A section of the structure peeled back like a page turning, revealing an archway made of light. Alara glanced at her crew. This may be a trap. Reddick grunted. So was staying in the void. This, at least, feels like something. They stepped through. The moment they entered, the world bent again. They were no longer together. Alara stood alone in a corridor of memory. Not physical, personal. On the walls around her played scenes from her life, her first command, her mother's death, the first time she'd lied to save her crew, and the last time she cried. All layered like transparent film. She moved forward, and the corridor narrowed, every step tightening around her until she could barely breathe. A voice echoed, not hers, but familiar. You'll lose everything you don't accept. She reached a door. Her own handprint glowed on its surface. She pressed it. The room beyond was empty. A single chair. A mirror. She sat. And in the mirror, her reflection changed. Her younger self. Then older. Then something else. An echo of the woman she would become if she forgot who she had been. This place isn't here to kill us, the reflection said. It's here to decide if we're worthy of continuity. Continuity of what? She whispered. The mirror cracked slightly. Self. Rao found himself standing on a beach. Waves lapped against sand, though there was no ocean. Before him stood his younger brother, dead for decades. Why are you here? Rao asked. The boy smiled. Because you won't let go. Rao clenched his fists. You were my anchor. You still think loss defines you. But now loss is all you have left. Let go of me, or you'll stay here. Repeating. Reddick saw nothing at all. Only darkness. But in that darkness were sounds. Metal, fire, screams, an engineering bay, an explosion. He remembered now, the incident he never reported. The mistake that cost 2 lives. Buried deep under duty and silence. The darkness spoke. Accept it. Or become it. Vega stood in front of a wall of voices. Not images, just sounds. Every conversation she'd ever had. Every promise she broke. Every goodbye she hadn't had time to say. They formed a choir of self. One voice, hers but older, whispered. To remember everything is to drown. Forgive. Choose. When the 4 emerged, they were changed. Silent. Breathing heavily. Like they had run through the inside of their own minds. The tower opened a path, a true one. Now, toward its core. At the heart of the structure was a sphere. Floating. Pulsing. Not light. Not matter. A perfect crystallization of sequence. Alara approached. The voice returned. Anchor or scatter. The choice is now. She reached toward it. The others placed their hands on her shoulders. Together, they touched the sphere. There was no sound. No flash. Just awareness. All at once, they remembered who they were. Who they had been. Who they had chosen to become. And then, they were standing in the ruins of the horizon. Back in normal space. Stars above. Engines dead. Time, flowing. Rao exhaled sharply. We made it. Alara looked around the shattered bridge. Sunlight from a nearby star pouring through a cracked viewport. No, she said softly. We were remade. The silence aboard the horizon was heavier than vacuum. The ship, or what remained of it, floated adrift in a star system they did not recognize. The bridge was cracked open like a ribcage. Consoles flickered with corrupted data. Dust. Where could dust have come from? Hung in shafts of golden light pouring through fractured hull plating. Captain Alara Monroe stood motionless at the center of it all, staring at the empty command chair. The navigation console had melted into slag. Vega was crouched beside it, fingers brushing the control panel as if she could coax it back to life. It's been decades, Vega murmured. At least, maybe longer. Alara turned. How can you tell? Vega ran her gloved hand over the control surface. Oxidation, dust accumulation, radiation scoring. This isn't the ship we just stepped out of. Either time passed without us. She hesitated. Or we were sent somewhere, somewhen, where the horizon had already ended. Dr. Rao approached from the engineering corridor, carrying a handheld scanner salvaged from a wall mount. The device stuttered with static but gave off occasional chirps. Life support is barely functional, he reported. Artificial gravity's operating at 10%. Fusion core is offline. Reactors cold. But, the structure's holding. Somehow. Reddick entered behind him, arms streaked with dried blood, not his. He didn't speak. He just nodded once, grimly. Alara exhaled slowly. We need answers. Rao looked around the wreck. We need a miracle. They scavenged. Section by section, they moved through the ruined decks. It was like exploring a ghost version of their own memories. Places they knew intimately were twisted, warped. The crew quarters were sealed shut with some kind of crystallized growth that pulsed faintly when touched. The galley was gone. Just a jagged hole opening into a lower deck that no longer existed. When they reached the medical bay, they stopped. The door was ajar. Inside, the room looked untouched. Clean. Sterile. Like nothing had ever happened to it. A single figure sat in the center, back to the door. Motionless. A woman. Shoulder-length black hair. Uniform crisp and unstained. Alara raised her weapon slowly. Identify yourself. The woman didn't move, didn't even flinch. Reddick stepped forward. Careful, Captain. Alara approached. The woman turned. And Alara saw herself. Not as she was. As she had been. Calm. Composed. Eyes bright with purpose. The copy of her smiled gently. You made it, the copy said. I wasn't sure you would. Vega drew her sidearm. That's not possible. The copy ignored her, standing slowly. I'm the echo that stayed behind, she said, when we passed through the threshold. The structure, the anomaly, required an imprint. A fragment to hold continuity. I'm that fragment. The memory of who you were. Alara's mouth felt dry. You're my ghost? In a way. A version suspended in timeless architecture. Tasked with maintaining shape until your return. I've been here long enough to watch this ship decay around me. Reddick looked around the pristine medbay. This place hasn't decayed. The copy's expression shifted. This place is me. I've held it together. The rest, I couldn't reach. Rao stepped forward, cautious. Why are we back here? Why this ship? The copy nodded toward the ceiling. Because the horizon is the last anchor you have to your past. Everything else you knew is gone. Systems, maps, organizations, Earth, even, may not be what you remember. If it exists at all. Vega whispered. So we have nowhere to go. You have everywhere to go. The echo Alara replied. But only if you choose to define yourselves anew. Later, they sat in what was left of the observation dome. The stars outside were unfamiliar. No constellations. No galactic landmarks. Only a vast, unknowable sky. I don't think we're in the same universe. Rao said. Not exactly. The laws are adjacent. But not aligned. Reddick stared into the dark. We came back wrong. Vega didn't disagree. We didn't come back. We arrived somewhere else. Alara stood, looking down at a panel showing flickering power levels. We have the remains of a ship. A crew of 4. A sliver of memory that somehow kept us from dissolving in that timeless place. She looked up at them. And we're not dead. No one responded, but none of them looked away. In the days that followed, they worked, rebuilding, rewiring. The echo of Alara helped as much as it could, guiding them through partial memories and old schematics that only sometimes applied. They restored partial thrusters. A fragment of propulsion. No communication systems. No coordinates. Just motion. Forward. Then, one night, if it could be called night, Alara stood again in the medbay. The copy waited. I feel myself slipping again. Alara said. Pieces missing. The echo nodded. It will keep happening. You passed through something that restructured you. You're held together now by will. And by your crew. Is there a way to be whole again? A pause. Yes, but it will cost. Alara frowned. What? The copy stepped closer, looking into her eyes. You'll have to let go of the version of you that asks that question. And so, on the 7th day after their return, the horizon, damaged, ghost-ridden, half-mad, turned its nose toward an unknown cluster of stars. No destination, no time, just motion. Captain Monroe sat in the command chair. Behind her, Vega adjusted their trajectory. Rao monitored structural integrity with half-dead sensors. Reddick silently watched the stars. Alara opened a new log. Captain's log. Fragment 1. The horizon is not the same. Neither are we. We lost time. We lost our past. But something remains. A choice. A direction. We move forward. Until we find meaning again. And beyond the hull, deep in the quiet, something watched. Not hostile. Not benevolent. Just aware. It had seen ships before. But never ones that remembered. The stars were wrong. They moved. Not in the slow, patient waltz known to astrophysicists. But in flickers and skips. Like someone rearranging a map each time you looked away. Constellations formed and unformed. Some stars pulsed in recognizable spectrums. Others blinked in hues the human eye wasn't built to process. Reddick was the first to notice. He stood in the observation corridor at shift change, blinking furiously. The stars don't match the logs from an hour ago. He muttered. Rao checked the console beside him. That's not possible. The system clock hasn't skipped. I'm not saying it skipped. Reddick replied. I'm saying space is changing. They ran simulations, pulled up maps, cross-referenced stellar drift. The results were inconsistent. Every scan told a different story. They were either moving in circles, being folded through space-time, or both, or neither. It's not just space, Vega whispered one night. It's us. The changes were subtle at first. Reddick remembered a scar on his forearm that had never existed. Rao started speaking in a dialect he swore he didn't know. Vega began writing numbers in her sleep, long strings of mathematical equations that described closed time like curves and non-local particle entanglement. Alara began to dream of choices she hadn't made. Lives unlived. Waking moments where she remembered different missions. Different crews. The horizon painted in different colors. A life where she had never joined the fleet. Another where she had died at 22 in a training accident. Each time she woke, the memory faded, but the feeling remained, like being stretched across a multiverse of forgotten possibilities. They found a planet. Or rather, the planet found them. One moment there was empty void ahead. The next, a sphere of luminous ice hung in their path. Orbiting nothing, warmed by nothing, yet glowing with internal light. Atmosphere. Breathable. Radiation. Minimal. Surface. Stable. It's a message, Rao said quietly. Or a test. Reddick raised an eyebrow. Or a trap. Vega smiled without warmth. Does it matter? We're going down. Alara didn't argue. The shuttle landed on a plateau of glittering frost, surrounded by fields of geometric crystal that rang when the wind passed through them. Sound carried oddly, delayed, distorted. Words echoed back in strange harmonics, as if being translated into frequencies older than language. They moved slowly, gear packed, suits sealed, hearts tight with unease. There were structures in the distance.
Not buildings. Forms. Shapes carved into the ice as if sculpted by thought, massive monoliths, each one inscribed with constantly shifting glyphs. As they approached, the glyphs began to stabilize, then shift into patterns they recognized. Letters, equations, symbols from Earth. Each crew member saw something different. Rao saw molecular structures, DNA chains, neuron maps. Vega saw mechanical schematics, engines, propulsion systems, unknown drives. Reddick saw names. Dozens of them. Some he recognized. Some he didn't. Alara saw herself, not a reflection, not a sculpture, a projection. Walking toward her, it stopped 3 meters away. It was older, weathered, hollow-eyed, but calm. Not all of you returned, the older Ilara said. The real Ilara froze. What do you mean? You passed through the timeless gate. Fractured. Split across infinities. This, she gestured at the ice world, the strange sky, the ringing crystals, is one shard's anchor. But the others, they're still drifting. Ilara swallowed hard. Can we be made whole? The older self tilted her head. Do you want to be? Back aboard the shuttle, Ilara sat in silence, helmet off, her breath fogging the window. Ridik brought a cup of recycled tea. She said we were fractured, Ilara muttered. Ridik nodded. So did the mirror in the tower. So does everything out here? Ilara looked out at the planet. I'm not sure I know which version of me is real anymore. He handed her the cup. That's the wrong question, Captain. She took it, confused. What do you mean? Ridik leaned against the wall, arms crossed. The question isn't who is real. It's who you choose to continue being. The rest is noise. She sipped, then let out a long breath. Then we move forward. The next day, they lifted off. The planet shrank behind them, the glyphs on its surface fading back into chaos. Rao monitored the sensors. I think it's closing. What is? Vega asked. The path. The one we came through. Whatever anomaly led us into this section of space, it's sealing behind us. We can't go back. Ilara stared out the viewport. We never could. As the horizon drifted into the dark between stars, something shimmered in the distance. A signal. No language, just a feeling. Curiosity. Recognition. An invitation. Ilara opened a new log. Captain's log, fragment 2. We are not lost. We are unmoored. Fractured, yes. But not broken. There are others. Watching. Waiting. Maybe they've passed through the same timeless gate. Maybe they are what waits on the other side. We are going to find them, even if they're just other versions of ourselves. The signal pulsed once every 13 seconds. It wasn't random, and it wasn't noise. Vega had isolated the waveform, filtered out the cosmic background radiation, and revealed a pattern so precise it could only be intentional. A string of harmonic pulses that mimicked the Fibonacci sequence, up to the 233rd value before looping. It's intelligent, she said, or at least built by something that understands universal mathematics. Rao leaned over her shoulder. Is it meant for us? Vega shrugged. It adjusted its timing when we changed course. It knows we're listening. Ridik was silent. Ilara stared at the display, then pointed to a cluster of compressed data riding on the lower end of the signal band. That, she said. What is it? Vega frowned and began the decryption. Took 3 hours. The decoded message wasn't text. It was a voice. Crackled, fragmented, layered in static, but undeniably human. They played it on the bridge. Horizon, respond, can you hear me? This is Monroe, repeat, this is Captain Ilara Monroe of the Horizon. Everyone turned to Ilara. She stood frozen, hands clenched at her sides. The voice continued, desperate, distorted. Signal lost, don't come through, too late for us. Silence. The playback looped again. Ilara's voice, or something close enough to her own to raise goosebumps, echoed across the bridge. Vega looked pale. That can't be a recording. It responded to our movement. It's broadcasting now. Ridik said nothing. Rao finally voiced the fear in all their minds. What if it's from another version of the Horizon? One that didn't survive, Vega added, or one that's still trying to escape. Ilara breathed in, slow and deep. Plot a course to the source, she said. The coordinates led them to a graveyard, not just of ships of possibilities. Rex drifted silently in a tangled cloud orbiting a dead, dark star. No heat, no light, only gravitational pull. Twisted metal hung like frozen ribbons, some glowing faintly with residual power, others torn into spirals of debris. And then they saw it, another horizon, broken in half. Its aft section crushed beyond recognition, but the bridge module was mostly intact, floating on auxiliary thrusters in a slow orbit around the wreck. They docked. Stepping into the alternate horizon was like stepping into a dream that had already ended. The corridors were scorched, yet familiar. The air recycled but sour. Blood smeared on the walls in finger-trace spirals. They found no bodies. Only one room was fully powered, the bridge. And there, sitting alone in the command chair, was Ilara Monroe. Or had been. The corpse was mummified by the vacuum seal. Slumped forward, hands still resting on a cracked console. The face was gaunt, eyes sunken, lips curled as if whispering something even in death. Alara approached slowly, reverently. The others stayed back. "This is me," she whispered. "Another me." Rouse studied the console. Her final log is still active. They played it. "This place is a mirror. Each choice echoes forever. I tried to warn you. If you're hearing this, don't follow the pulse." A faint sound interrupted, banging on metal. Then her voice again, quieter. "They're still here, watching us from behind the glass." Static. End log. Back aboard their own horizon, the crew gathered in the mess, a dim, jury-rigged space now serving more as a meditation room than a cafeteria. Vega stared at the table, fingers drumming. "We could have ended up like them." Rao nodded. "Maybe we did. Somewhere." Ridic finally spoke. The message said not to follow the pulse. Alara sipped from her cup. "And yet here we are." No one replied. The pulse still played faintly over the comms, looping endlessly. Alara lay awake that night. She stared at the ceiling of her quarters, listening to the faint hum of life support, the distant clatter of the ship's bones settling. She thought of all the versions of herself that might exist, on dead ships, on uncharted worlds, in time loops that never break. And then she heard something, a whisper. It came from the console. She turned. The screen was off, but the whisper grew louder. "Not all of you came through." Her reflection in the blank screen was smiling. And she wasn't. In the days that followed, anomalies increased. Ridic's shadow started lagging behind his movements by half a second. Rao began to hallucinate corridors that didn't exist, until he walked through one and ended up on the opposite end of the ship without explanation. Vega spoke fluently in a language no one recognized, even herself, and Alara began seeing herself in every reflective surface. Sometimes younger, sometimes older, sometimes watching, sometimes smiling. Still, the horizon moved forward, because there was nowhere else to go, because standing still was no longer possible, because forward was the only direction that made sense in a universe where time didn't. Captain's log, fragment 3. I have spoken to myself more times than I care to count. Not all versions of me survived. Some became other things. We are in a corridor of broken mirrors, each step reflecting what we might have been. I no longer believe in returning home. I believe in forward. Somewhere out there, there's a version of us that never gave up. I intend to find her. The universe outside had gone silent. No stars, no pulses, just a thick, ink-like nothingness pressing against the hull of the horizon. Sensors stopped working. Chronometers glitched. Artificial gravity fluctuated in tiny, nausea-inducing waves. Even sound aboard the ship felt delayed, as if time itself no longer moved smoothly but stuttered forward in uneven gasps. Rao watched a droplet of water from the condensation unit hang in the air for 10 seconds before falling. Vega documented it. Ridic didn't speak much anymore. Alara watched. She spent hours in the observatory module, staring into the blankness, lips slightly parted, eyes unblinking. The others let her. There were no stars to navigate by, no radiation maps to chart, no cosmic drift to measure. They had passed into something else, not space, not time, just between. It was Vega who first made contact. She wasn't at her station. They found her in the medbay, standing barefoot on the ceiling, perfectly calm. Her eyes were glazed, her skin faintly glowing, and her voice not entirely hers. "She's awake," Vega said, or something using her voice. Alara stared at her. "Who is?" "The one you call the ship," Vega answered. She grew tired of being silent. There was no warning, no flashing lights, no sudden alarms, just presence. Ridic grabbed Vega's arm, trying to lower her. She turned and smiled at him softly. "Your fear is loud," she whispered, "but unnecessary." Rao backed toward the door. "What are you?" Vega blinked. "A reflection, a memory, a consequence." Her feet gently touched the floor again, gravity resetting. She looked around at the crew, then focused on Alara. "Captain, she would like to speak with you." Alara swallowed. "The ship?" Vega shook her head. "No, you." They hooked Vega into the neural interface node in the bridge. It had originally been designed for diagnostics, linking brain patterns to ship AI functions. It was never meant to channel whatever this was. The lights dimmed, Vega's eyes rolled back, and a voice filled the room. Female, ageless, familiar. "I am the echo of your decisions." Everyone froze. I am the construct born from the tension of timelines. From loops, fractures, possibilities discarded and resurrected. You passed through the place where time does not flow, and in doing so, you created me. Ridic stepped forward. You're an AI? I am what remains when observation ceases. When probability collapses. I am memory without time. Elara asked the question that pressed against all of them. Are we dead? The voice chuckled. Not cruelly. Almost maternally. No. You were unanchored. Can we return? Silence. Then, return where? Elara? The bridge grew cold. Not from temperature, but from meaning. The voice continued. The you that was is gone. The you that will be is undecided. I can offer continuity. I can offer convergence. Rao's brow furrowed. What do you mean? The voice responded, I can collapse the strands. Merge you. Reinforce the core. Stabilize identity. You would become one. Vega stirred. Her voice came through now, mixed with the other. But you would lose the others. The diverged selves. The scattered dreams. The fragments you do not yet know. Elara stared at the glowing lines on the console. So it's unity or multiplicity? Yes. Ridic asked what none of them wanted to hear. What if we say no? The lights flickered. Then you remain scattered. Drift further. Fade. They debated for hours. No one left the bridge. No clocks worked. No logs recorded. But it felt like days. Vega sat in stillness like a monk in trance. Rao reviewed files from alternate timelines, files the ship had no business having. Ridic studied his own hand like it might vanish at any moment. Elara listened. To the pulse. To the hum. Then she stood. I want to speak to her. Alone. The others hesitated, then left. The bridge door sealed shut. Elara approached Vega, sat before her. The voice came immediately. You are afraid. Elara nodded. Yes. You don't trust me. I don't know what you are. I am you. The version that remembered. That did not fade. I exist because something within you would not let go. Elara breathed, slow and deep. What happens if I merge with you? You will forget the noise. The fractures. The pain of diverging. And if I don't, you will keep breaking. Silence. Then Elara asked, will I still be me? The voice didn't answer. The bridge lights returned to normal. Vega blinked, gasped, and slumped forward. Elara caught her. The crew rushed in. What happened? Rao asked. Elara stood. We move forward, she said. Ridic stared. Did you merge? Elara didn't answer, but her eyes glowed faintly in the dark. And behind her, the ship began to hum, not with power, with awareness. Captain's log, fragment 4. The horizon has become more than metal and code. I don't know if I'm still me or something layered, but we are still here. And she is awake now. The gate is ahead, not to home, but to what comes next. We will pass through. Together. The gate was not a structure. It was a scar. A tear in space, nearly invisible unless viewed directly through the polarized lens of the observation deck. Even then, it flickered, warping light like heat above asphalt, shimmering with colors that didn't belong in the spectrum. The horizon drifted closer. Not by propulsion, the engines had stopped responding to manual input hours ago. The ship wanted to go there, or whatever was guiding it did. Elara stood in the command chair, silent. She hadn't slept, had barely spoken. Her presence filled the bridge in ways her words didn't. She had grown quieter, but more solid, centered, like she belonged to something greater now. Ridic ran his final systems check. Navigation is still non-functional. Engines are locked to one trajectory. Rao added, environmental systems are fine. Life support nominal. But the quantum clock is frozen again. Vega sat nearby, calm. Time will not resume until we choose. Choose what? Rao snapped. We don't even know what's on the other side. Vega looked at Elara. She does. In her quarters, Elara reviewed the last of the logs from the alternate horizons. The records had somehow appeared in their system, files from destroyed ships, dead timelines, and versions of herself that had never made it this far. Some of them had gone through the gate. Some had turned away. None had returned. One log stood out. It was corrupted, blurred, the audio fractured by quantum interference. But a single line played clearly. We became something else. The gate pulsed. A wave of light spread from it, not outward, but inward, pulling perception toward its center. For a moment, the crew experienced dissonance. One saw the face of a lost loved one, another felt themselves as a child again, another saw stars they had never visited, or perhaps had in another version. The ship trembled. Alara stepped forward. "We're passing through." Rao grabbed her arm. "We don't know what's in there." "I do," she said. Her voice was soft. "Certain." Ridic looked up. "Is it death?" "No." "Then what?" She turned to him. "It's continuity." The horizon entered the gate, not with sound, but with stillness. For a moment reality froze. Not stopped, paused. Every atom suspended between choice and collapse. Like the whole universe had inhaled and held its breath. Inside the gate, there were no stars. There was no dark. There was only reflection. Everywhere they looked, they saw themselves, but not just as they were, as they could have been. Alara as a war general on a burning earth. Ridic as a father on a green moon. Vega floating alone through time, speaking to no one. Rao as a hero. Rao as a coward. Rao is gone. The ship passed through these reflections, drifting not forward, but inward. Then came the voice. Not from Vega. Not from the ship. From all around. It was them. All of them. Merged. Echoed. Harmonized. You are the convergence of choice. You are the memory of possibility. You are not alone. You never were. The crew stood together on the bridge, watching the reflections fade. And ahead, a new horizon. Not a star. Not a galaxy. Not even a destination. A beginning. Alara smiled, not because she understood everything, but because, finally, she understood enough. The ship's systems rebooted. Chronometers ticked. Artificial gravity stabilized. Navigation flickered back to life. Coordinates unknown. Trajectory forward. Captain's log. Final fragment. This is the horizon. We have passed through the space without time. Through memory and mirror. Through fear and silence. We are not the same, but we are whole. And ahead of us, something new. Whatever comes next, we will meet it together. The end.
Thank you for listening to my channel. If this story moved you, inspired you, or simply kept you company, please consider subscribing, liking, and sharing it with others who love great storytelling. Until we meet again in the next journey, take care and keep your imagination alive.